Early in the 13th century and into the 14th century, the Mongols will subdue an area between Korea and the Danube River. After building this empire, the Mongols established what historians have called the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, which facilitated trade and exchange for centuries after the Mongols had disappeared. At roughly the same size as the Soviet Union, the Mongol Empire was the largest empire the world had known to that point, and is still recognized today as the largest contiguous empire in all of world history. The Mongols were the epitome of a nomadic people. They raised goats and sheep, they lived off the meat and milk of their herds, and they supplemented their meals with grains and vegetables that they acquired through trade. They wore sheepskin, lived in tents of wool, and boys and girls could ride a horse the moment they could walk, and they could eat and sleep on the saddle for days. Like other nomadic peoples, the Mongols had a deep sense of loyalty to kin groups such as clans, tribes, and families. This loyalty makes it very difficult for Mongols to establish a larger society. However, whenever threatened or prepared for a raid, clans and tribes can combine into greater confederations, which could last months, even years, but ultimately would disband once the threat was gone or the raid was over. Leaders would be elected by freemen. Women exercised influence within the family and had the right to be heard in tribal councils, though. Leaders were generally courageous, both in the battle or in the hunt, and were able to build alliances. Leaders who grew old and feeble, or suffered severe setbacks, could expect their subordinates to abandon them. Mongol success owed much of the guiding genius who launched his people into history, Genghis Khan. His great-grandfather, Kublai Khan, was able to defeat a Qin dynasty army in the 12th century at the head of an alliance. Soon after this victory, though, he grew ill and died, and his successors were unable to keep this alliance together. His father was a minor Mongol chief, and an able man with a sizable following. Genghis Khan was born around 1162 with the name Temujin, or Man of Iron. His father was killed by enemies when he was approximately 10 years old. He's too young to lead his father's followers. In 1182, he's captured. He's placed in a wooden collar, but he escapes, rejoins the remaining members of his family, and ultimately joined the camp of a more powerful Mongol, who aided his father. He spent years in exile in the steppes, and he gathered followers, using war and diplomacy to patch together a new confederacy. He took revenge against the clan that killed his father, and another one that raided his camp to steal horses and women. These successes won him renown amongst the Mongols, and in 1206, the Kurultai, the meeting of the chieftains, recognized him as Genghis Khan, a title which can be interpreted as Great Ruler or Universal Ruler. As Khan, he had great ambitions. He is said to have declared that his greatest pleasure in life was making war, defeating enemies, forcing, and I quote, their beloved to weep, riding on their horses, embracing their wives and daughters, unquote. Genghis began Mongol imperial rule by launching his first campaigns of conquests against those in Central Asia and even northern China. In 1207, for example, he forced the ruler of the Tanguts in Central Asia to become his vassal. In 1215, the Mongols forced the Jin court to relocate and renamed their capital Khanbalik, the city of the Khan, the capital of Mongol China. In China, they encountered Chinese defensive works, but in a display of adaptability, they devised siege works to overcome them. Genghis Khan led Mongol forces west into parts of Afghanistan and eastern Persia. At the time, these Central Asian regions were still being ruled by the Turks. In 1218, he offered the Turkish Shah the chance to avoid conquest and establish trade. But when the Shah tried to have Genghis killed, the Mongols sought revenge. The following year, 1219, Genghis Khan launched an attack. At first, the Shah was immobilized with fear because the Mongols attacked from multiple directions. Then he fled, leaving his subjects to fend for themselves. In the end, the Shah was killed and his armies were shattered. He compounded his problems when he quarreled with the Caliph of Baghdad, who had little desire to help him against the Mongols. To make sure that these Turks would never again challenge his empire, Genghis Khan wreaked terrible destruction on the region, killing as many as 800,000 people and ravaged cities. The capital, Gurganj, fell after the Mongols flooded the town by releasing the river onto it. The capital of the citadel of Bamiyan, where one of Genghis' grandsons was killed, was obliterated and given the name Accursed City. This campaign was one of the most brutal of the Mongol campaigns. Despite this brutality, though, the Mongols labored to maintain relations with others. They even sent embassies and ambassadors all the way to France and Italy.